Welcome to the Advanced Malware Tactics part 4 of this video series. This is the part 4 where we will be doing a deep dive into the DLL injection. We will discuss a little bit about different types of process injection. The first 3 parts in this playlist we have discussed. In part 1 about the Windows core concepts. Then in part 2 we took an introduction about process injection. In part 3 we looked at the basic building blocks of process injection. And now in this part 4 we will do a little bit more deep dive into the QakBot Malware script, which helps us to understand how DLL injection works in the backend. It will not be a practical deep dive. It is just going to be a theoretical discussion, theoretical deep dive. So let's get started then. Let's first discuss what are the common types of process injection out there. Now, these process injection techniques that I'm showing you, like DLL injection, shim injection, process injection, this is not an exhaustive list of process injection techniques, but these are some of the most common types of process injections that are seen out there. And out of which this DLL injection, this was used in last year's QakBot Malware campaign, which was targeting many industries globally. And when I was investigating that campaign, I got a chance to retrieve one of the script that was used in DLL injection. So we will annotate that script on the screen and discuss what the script is doing and how it is doing the DLL injection. The other injection types, I mean, they are also seen out there. These are also most common ones. But the thing to remember is that no matter which process injection type, the basic building blocks, these 3 basic building blocks, they will always remain common in these process injections. They will, in order to inject a code and get it executed through process injection, attacker would have to follow this sequence: allocate, where he will reserve a space; write, where you copy your code into the reserved space; and then execution. In the execution there will be variety. We have already discussed in part 3 that in execution there will be variety, there will be new techniques, there will be new system calls or APIs that will be abused. But overall the concept and the sequence that follows for code injection, that remains common in no matter which process injection type you take. So in this we will take DLL injection because that is what I worked on and I have it handy. Let's understand it through an example. So here is the script that I could get hold of when I was investigating one of the QakBot malware campaign. And this was a PowerShell script based on the commandlets that I used here. You can easily understand that this is the PowerShell script. Like start sleep, get item, all these commandlets are used in PowerShell. And if we want to see what the script was doing, I have annotated it here. You can stop the screen and you can either do a deep dive, or you can just follow through. Like start sleep, this commandlet delays the execution of this script, and this is usually I assumed that this was, my hypothesis is that this was used as a defense evasion technique, because the moment PowerShell.exe process was started, it was started, and after that, the moment this script was called, for 5 seconds nothing happens. And then obviously if a script is not doing anything for 5 seconds, the EDRs, it is also looking at a lot of other data, a lot of other processes, then this is kind of a defense evasion technique, including start sleep functions in your script and then delaying the execution. After that, this modulated, this variable that you see here, it is trying to create an array for each of these URLs. And now each of these URLs, either they were newly registered domains by the attackers before they planned the campaign. So this was a global campaign targeting 16 plus industries, and there are a lot of publicly available research articles on this that covered this campaign very well. And based on that, one could understand that the attackers, they registered thousands of domains, newly registered domains, before doing this attack campaign. So, and plus they compromised some legitimate domains as well to deliver their next sample, the DLL file that will do the code injection to deliver that. So this script is just the initial payload, which then calls these URLs and downloads the next DLL that is going to perform the process injection. And some of the genuine sites were compromised to deliver the sample, like this one here, alzheimersdigest.net. This is I think a site of a medical body that was compromised, and there the attackers hosted their next malware payload, the next DLL sample that was going to do the process injection. So if you see here, then this variable is creating an array for these URLs, and then using the wget function, using the wget commandlet, the attackers are calling these URLs, and then once the URL is called, they are trying to retrieve the next sample, download the next sample in the temp folder. And this is the sample that gets downloaded. It's named as for judgment.muriform. I mean, this is a meaningless name. Usually attackers, they name their files and everything as per comic characters or some weird names. And also the extension is changed here. It does not explicitly show that this is a DLL file. The extension is .muriform, which is completely meaningless. But if you look, that start commandlet is used to call run DLL32. And now if you have some kind of experience in OS reverse engineering and in DLLs and in IT, then you will understand that, okay, run DLL32, if somebody is calling, and with that, if this file is called, then this has to be a DLL file, because run DLL32 is known for calling, exporting functions out of the DLL files. So that is the reason run DLL32 is called here, using which then the attacker's script is calling this downloaded malicious DLL file, calling a function out of it, and then it is the DLL injection is performed. So this stanza here, this block of statement, that is important for us if we want to check the process injection. So that is why I have magnified that here and focusing on that. So start commandlet, it starts the run DLL32 file. Run DLL32 file, then it calls this X555 is the function that it is calling from this malicious DLL. And after that function is called, we saw in our investigation that these two exes, Wermgr.exe, werfault.exe, they started communicating with external public IPs, external servers, started exfiltrate, started sending out data, like data as in the system information, the host name, what are the policies, what are the registry settings on the system, and all those kind of things. And so this sequence of events, then on basis of this, I'm hypothesizing that the process injection occurred, and based on the available research and typical behavior of QakBot malware, the hypothesis says that there is a strong possibility that the create remote thread method was employed to achieve this injection. And although then this is an educated hypothesis, the exact method without reverse engineering this DLL file cannot be confirmed for further detailed analysis. But yeah, it's a good hypothesis based on whatever the public research is available, that create remote thread was used in the execution phase. Now let's understand that. Before that, before we do a deep dive into the allocation, write, and execution phase of how DLL injection happened, let's just take an overview of the the initial access and execution, like how it happened in this campaign, in this attack campaign that was targeting globally these industries. So the initial access was through phishing email. Through phishing email, a lot of these companies were hit, and their employees were lured with social engineering, high-level social engineering messages, and they were asked to open this attachment, which then calls this URL, which downloads this initial PowerShell script that I was showing you on the previous screen. This PowerShell script, then when it is executed, it starts to call those URLs that I was showing, and from those URLs, then it downloads this DLL file, malicious DLL file. This DLL file, once it is downloaded, then the PowerShell script starts the run commandlet. The PowerShell script uses the start commandlet to start the run DLL32.exe, which is a Windows host process, which calls the functions of these DLL, and then the injection happens. That is the educated hypothesis guess that the injection happens, because then you see the wermanager.exe, werfault.exe starting to call outside to public IPs, to external servers that were the attacker's server, and sending out information. So at this stage the process injection occurred, the DLL injection occurred. Since this was a DLL file, we have this is categorized as DLL injection. Now let's understand then how this could have happened. So as in the part 3 and also in the beginning of this video, we discussed that the basic blocks remain the same. In order to inject the code, you will have to go through allocation, write, and execution, this sequence. So let's understand that. So here when the run DLL32, it calls this function of this malicious DLL. This malicious DLL then calls the virtual alloc. It uses this API, and this is the available API that you can use if you want to allocate space in another process's virtual address space. So virtual alloc would have been called, and using which then this DLL reserves a space in these two processes, because these two processes were the targets of this DLL. So it is calling this API to reserve a space in the process of these address spaces, and after that then comes the write stage, where now the DLL will inject its code into the address space of these processes. After the code is injected, so these two stages are common in every process injection. The execution stage, that will differ as per the execution method that the attacker is choosing, but allocate and write happens using those same APIs, virtual alloc and write process memory. After that, then based on the available research and the investigation that I conducted, I am drawing a hypothesis that create remote thread was used in order to execute the code that was inserted. Create remote thread, we discussed in the previous part, is nothing but you create one more thread, one more worker thread that will execute your code. The rest of the worker threads, the rest of the threads that are there in the process, they will keep doing their own assigned tasks. But you are, by calling this function create remote thread, is a more direct method, very simple, very powerful, of simply you ask the operating system to create one more thread for executing your code, and this is what happened. Now I remember that I have in the part 3 already told you that create remote thread is very widely used. It's a very old traditional process injection method. It's a very direct, simple method, very powerful method for process injection, and it is caught by almost every EDR on the market. So every endpoint detection response anti-malware software catches create remote thread very easily. Then still my hypothesis is that in this campaign still we saw a lot of companies getting compromised. Why did that happen? Based on the research that I conducted, I have come to a conclusion that even though endpoint detection response systems, they provide this core prevention for preventing the code injection and execution, but still the code injection in the backend happens for a lot of legitimate causes as well, like a lot of Windows host processes like run DLL32, then some other Windows host process I'm not remembering now, which is very strange because so these Windows host processes like run DLL32, trusted installer.exe, these kind of processes are known for injecting code into other processes during Windows updates and all those kind of things, software patching and these kind of things. These Windows host processes are known to copy code from one process to another process, and these are all legitimate activities. In case if you really want to get granular and define your policy to catch these kind of injections, then your policies, they require a lot of customization, proactive updation as per the attack campaigns that are seen. And the EDR vendors in their core prevention, they do offer some kind of code injection prevention techniques, but since these code injection techniques are used for legitimate activities as well, that is the reason there is a gap there. Like the EDRs, they provide you, the endpoint security admins, with the customization that you go ahead and you define in your environment after testing. If you really want to prevent all code injection prevention, or only specific code injection prevention should be allowed, or it should be blocked. So that kind of customization is available in the EDR policies. Plus, every EDR vendor, they have this threat analysis unit in their organizations, where these threat analysis units, these threat research engineers there are regularly conducting these researches on new type of attacks that are happening out there in the wild. And then based on that, the product development team is informed. Based on that, several advisories are sent regularly and communicated through various channels like communities or email notifications to their customers, to go ahead and to enable proactively some policies to detect these kind of attacks. And similarly for QakBot Malware, 2 years ago in June, July, there was a similar campaign that was targeting different industries, where a different kind of attachment was sent out, like OneNote and HTML attachments were sent. At that time, several EDR vendors, they had sent out an advisory. So if the endpoint security admins are not proactive in going ahead and as per these advisories, customizing their policies, configuring their policies, then such kind of attacks, even though they can be detected, even though if they are using very well-known process injection execution techniques like create remote thread, they will not get caught. And that's where then the compromise happens. Alright, then I hope then that through this video you have gotten the understanding of process injection. And now in the next video, in the next part, we will discuss the novel process injection techniques that were revealed at Black Hat. So a security research team, as we discussed in the first part of the video, that they presented in their research, they discovered 8 new process injection techniques which do not use create remote thread or any other known execution methods. They are completely using new execution methods to get their code executed once it is inserted into another process. And those 8 process injection techniques are so sophisticated that no EDR on the market is currently able to detect them. So fully undetectable 8 new process injection techniques were discovered and presented at Black Hat, and then we will discuss about them. So only when you have seen all these 4 parts and understood them in depth, once your fundamentals on process injection are clear, then in the 5th part you will be able to follow how the new techniques are working and how these new techniques are employing a different method in execution stage, and why they are undetectable then by the anti-malware softwares. Alright, then if this video was of really value to you, please like and subscribe and share. That will motivate me to create more such videos. Thank you. I will see you in the next part.